Hello and welcome. I'm a hotel AI expert with extensive experience in modern hospitality operations, and I'm very pleased to welcome all of you, the students of Europe Hotel School, to your online learning journey. In our industry, just getting through a crisis is really only half the battle. The real test, the one that truly defines a great hotel, is what happens after the storm has passed. So today, we're going to dive into how the best hotels don't just recover, they use challenges to build incredible, lasting strength. Okay, let's think about this. The crisis has ended, the hotel's back open, and that sense of calm starts to return. It's so easy, so tempting to just think the challenge is behind you. But the reality? Well, the most critical phase for real growth and for future-proofing your success is actually just beginning. And this brings us right to our first big idea, the calm after the storm. It can be deceptive. On the surface, things might look like they're back to normal. But just beneath that calm, there's this incredible opportunity just waiting for those who are willing to look for it. So here's the crucial point. Rushing forward without taking a moment to reflect means you're basically carrying the exact same risks and weaknesses with you into the future. But a hotel that chooses to pause, to intentionally slow down and really look at what happened, well, that's how you turn a tough time into a powerful, permanent advantage. This leads us to a really fundamental shift in mindset. It's the one thing that separates the truly exceptional hotels from the ones that are just average. And it's all about seeing every single challenge not as a problem, but as a chance to learn something new. Think about it this way. What really makes a hotel strong isn't that it never has problems. Of course not. It's the unshakable commitment to learning from those problems. When you start treating a crisis like it's a classroom, you build this culture of resilience that is just so incredibly hard to break. So, how do we actually do this? How do we build this learning mindset right into the way we operate? Well, we use a structured, formal method called the After-Action Review, or AAR for short. This brings real discipline and focus to what could otherwise be a pretty chaotic conversation. The absolute key to a successful AAR is right there in the definition, without assigning blame. This philosophy is a total game changer. It turns the whole process from being about criticism into being about discovery. The goal isn't to find out who's at fault. It's to find a better way forward, together. And this slide just illustrates that difference perfectly. A blame culture always asks, who failed? And what happens? People immediately get defensive and honest conversation just shuts down. But a learning culture asks something completely different. What happened and what can we learn from it? That simple little shift, it opens the door to a truly productive, game-changing dialogue.
The entire AAR process is guided by these three simple but really powerful questions. First, you have to get a clear, unbiased picture of what actually happened. Second, and this is just as important, you have to identify what went right. And finally, you explore concrete, practical ways to get better.
Now, the success of this whole thing really hinges on leadership. If your team feels like they're being judged, they're going to hold back valuable information. But when leaders create a truly safe environment, by listening more than they talk, by asking questions, by acknowledging effort, they unlock the kind of honest insights that no system or report could ever give them. And when you do this review the right way, you start to uncover these valuable, often subtle truths about how your organization really works, the kinds of things you only see when the pressure is really on. And we're not always talking about huge, dramatic failures here. A lot of the time, it's the small stuff, the little inefficiencies that suddenly become major problems when things get stressful. For example, maybe you have the right equipment, but it's stored somewhere nobody can get to it quickly. Or maybe the procedures are written down, but the team on the ground doesn't really understand them. This quote just hits the nail on the head. You can have the most brilliant emergency plan in the world, but if your staff can't find it, or they can't understand it, or they can't execute it with confidence, well, then it's almost worthless, isn't it? And that brings us to a really critical pivot point. We've been talking about operational systems and procedures, but the human element is just as important, if not more so. Because at the end of the day, it's your people who bring all those procedures to life. Exploring how your employees actually felt during a crisis, their stress levels, how confident they were making decisions, that's not some secondary, nice-to-have conversation. It is a central, non-negotiable part of the learning process. A team that feels supported and heard will always, always outperform one that feels overwhelmed and uncertain. So how do we take all of these lessons, the operational ones and the human ones, and actually translate them into lasting organizational strength? Well, that's the final, and I think the most important step in this whole journey. It is so vital to stop and recognize what went well. When teams get to acknowledge their own successes, it reinforces all those positive behaviors and builds a ton of confidence. Celebrating what you did right doesn't mean you're ignoring the problems. It just means you're creating a balanced perspective that motivates the whole team to aim even higher. The path forward really has to be practical. Your insights have to become real, concrete actions. That means updating procedures. It means integrating these lessons into your regular training, documenting everything for the future, and most importantly, making this kind of reflection a consistent cultural habit. And that right there, that's the ultimate goal. When teams are encouraged to reflect all the time, even on small things, you create an environment where learning is just part of the daily operation. It's a proactive approach that builds true, sustainable resilience. Ultimately, this whole process is about transformation. It really is. It takes honesty, it takes openness, and a deep-down willingness to want to get better. It's about making your organization fundamentally stronger with every single challenge it faces. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Is your hotel, or the team you're a part of, simply recovering from crises? Or is it evolving beyond them, ready to face whatever comes next with more confidence and more capability than ever before?